word and the gossiping and the lying, and that can be spread so quickly. But the effects of it is one of the hadith that I remember reading a while ago, the hadith of just the effects of lying.
The word
effects
and
of lying,
the
that when a person lies for his own worldly causes. Because
the
there is a lie
one
that
of
you
the
can
hadith
use
that I remember reading a while
in
ago,
terms
the hadith
of only
just the effects of lying.
reconciling people together. That's the only time that the scholars have said that you can use this type of lying. When you reconcile people, but when it comes to that personal ego of yourself, you can't lie. He says that when a person does a lying, he says that, the hadith says that 70,000 angels, that's it, 70,000 angels write down what he emits, the odor that emits from his heart. It goes up to the heavens. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordains these angels to write 70 fornications for the liar. The least of them, God forbid, the least of them is the fornication between himself and his mother.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just one hadith about the effects of the lying. In fact, if you want to sum it up, about the liar, where Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam, I think his martyrdom is very shortly in the next week or so, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ja'al al-khaba'ith in one house, and then he goes, وَمَفْتَاحَهُمْ الْكِذِبِ, that the key of of all these vices and all that is lying. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam goes on saying pretty much in a similar fashion, in a similar way. He says that when it comes to lying, that God has locked all the sins, has put them in locks. He says them, and the lock that can open up all the sins is alcohol. But then he says, the Imam stops here and goes, hold on a sec, and lying is worse than the alcohol.
Well.
Yeah, we have a hadith that the lying, God forbid, it's like I said, it's to the point that's worse than adultery, fornication. Because as you said, it brings mischief. It brings a dishonor to people sometimes, like, by lying, and wars have started by lying. The effects of like our religion now, the Islamic religion, the ahadith of lying that we said, we talked about Siddiq al-Hadith. There's, how many hadiths have been brought through history about, like for instance, like some of the fake hadiths about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. The lying that was used by, for instance, like Muawiyah with Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba. When they make all these things about that he was a women lover and all this stuff. And this is everlasting. Look, up to now, people still believe this thing. And that's why the narration says that even when you die, if you have said something, a lie, and that lie is ever still going, and it could travel for years, you will reap the punishment of that lie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Ahsan Sayyid.
Yeah.
So just a very quick question on the topic of lie before we move on. Something that a lot of Arabs tend to say it. This thing that's called kizbe bayda, a white lie. I don't know if lies come in different colors, but just to clarify it for people, a white lie or a blue lie or a black lie, whatever the hell it is a lie in our religion, whether it's white, big or small?
The fact is that because you said yourself, they put the white in it because usually white is usually associated with holiness or purity, because even if it was small, they wouldn't say like a small black lie, because straight away you'd know that all of a sudden like black doesn't really make sense. So to put like the innocent side to it is a white lie. No, a lie is a lie. In Islam, a lie is a lie. And like I just mentioned before, the only time the scholars have said, the only time someone can lie is to reconcile someone. Like for instance, like someone's going through marriage problems. You can say, you can actually, to reconcile this, like you can say to that person, I heard your wife, and I know like your wife, or that lady can say that she says plenty of times that she does actually like love you and like you, and she misses you. Because the hadiths, listen to this, if you can reconcile people, it is better than, I remember one hadith, I think it's 70,000 years of worship or whatever, of night and day of prayer and fast. To reconcile people together is okay, but to lie, like I said, give the bibayda and all that, this is just something that from a custom, like, you know, so it doesn't
But
really...
the only problem, Sayyid, see, when I actually learnt about what you just said about where you can lie to reconcile two people, there's a problem that lies here. What if you're lying on behalf of either person, and then that person goes and tells the other person, oh, for example, Haj Ali told me that you love me.
Yeah.
And then he comes and says, no, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
See, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, sometimes it's like there's loopholes behind certain things, but sometimes doing something good can also get you in trouble. So if that was to happen, I mean, how does the person that tried to do the good end up looking when he turns out to be that he was trying to fix a lie, turns out he's the liar?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So, like I said, that scenario can happen, as you pointed out, how that when these people, the people that reconcile people together, usually, it won't be like normal people. Like normally, you would want to get someone that involved that knows pretty much every single loophole of what could happen. They've checked this out. You know, when you probably worked in the industries. When you sit down sometimes, before you approach a job, they do a JECA, a job search equipment analysis. They will sit down and they'll point out every single hazard or any possibility that could happen. And that's what they will do. Whoever is going to reconcile will sit down and make sure that, you know, that person that's working on the other party, is he, you know, doing, and that we reconcile before we actually go forth and hopefully present our motion. This is the very important thing. Like you said, you can't leave yourself open because it can backfire, and sometimes the intention could be there, but it has to be done with people that we said before that can know the consequences of every word that comes out of that place.
Ahsan, Sayyid, Ahsan. Sayyid, moving on, the next question that we have, so you've kind of touched up on it briefly, so maybe we can keep this question short. How is lying compared to other sins in the context of narrations? Yeah,
that's true. But basically, like we said, we did touch up on it, and to the point that the house in which that has all the vices and the evil in it, that miftah al-kadhib. In fact, there's another narration which sums it up, where Imam Ali alayhi salam says al-khiyana min al-kadhib, that treachery is from lying. So basically, at the end of the day, if you look from if we can sum it up what you said now in one story. It's remind me of a story now, that when the guy comes up to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi, he tells him that I steal, that I drink alcohol, that I do like other vices, and he goes, look, honestly, I want to repent, and the Prophet doesn't tell him. The Prophet tells him one thing. He goes, stop lying. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, stop lying. So the guy goes, but the Prophet goes to him, do you promise me? You know, do you give me your word? He goes, I promise you. So what happens was, that night, he wants to steal. He wants to steal. He goes like, I've got nothing here, I want to go and steal. As he's going out of the house, he thinks to himself, hold on a sec, if I get caught, I'm going to be shamed. But at the same time, if I bump into the Holy Prophet and he asks me, what did I do last night? I promised him I'm not going to steal. So he goes to me, you know what, stop that. He goes, you know what, instead of that, I'm just going to go home. I've got a bit of alcohol, I'm going to go home and drink some alcohol. So he goes home and he goes, hold on a sec, same thing. I'm guaranteed, even if it's not true, I'm going to bump into the Holy Prophet. If he's going to ask me whether I drank, or when's the last time I drank, I've got to tell you, I can't lie to him. So you know what, I left it. He found by stopping the lying, everything else in his life stopped. And that's what you find, that it's that vice that really drives the other body parts and drives everything. In fact, Haj Ali used to remind me something good. We have a hadith, have a very hadith that the body parts, when they wake up in the morning, they ask the tongue, they go, how are you today? And it's like they're talking. He goes, نحن بخير, if you're good, doing good. That means if you're good, if you're trustworthy, the rest of our body is going to be trustworthy. That explains everything what you said about that hadith there.
Ahsan, Sayyid, ahsan. Sayyid, next question. Something very interesting. A lot of people may have not heard about it before, and if you can also explain its definition in English. What is Buhtan? Yeah. Can you give us an example and obviously the definition?
Okay, Buhtan, basically the definition of Buhtan is to do false allegations or slandering upon a person and to demise them and to bring them down, especially in public. But that's the main description of what Buhtan is. Accusing people, giving them false attributes that don't exist in that person. But the question should be really, why does Buhtan come into place? Like, what drives Buhtan? Mm-hmm. Like, honestly, like if there was a good quality in that person, we would be in a public thing. There's nothing wrong with saying that good quality of the person, which also might inspire other people to do. Like if I know, for instance, like that this guy is very when it comes to the charity, very open in terms of he helps out many people and all that stuff. I can say things like that. And that's like an aspect of good. But usually when it comes to Buhtan, the only reason that Buhtan, the allegations and the false allegations exist because of hasad, either by hasad, by envy, by greed, and just worldly aspects to defame that person or demoralize them. That's basically. In fact, the narration says that when you do Buhtan, when you actually do these accusations against, especially a mu'min, it dissolves, the hadith says, it dissolves the iman in your heart like the salt gets dissolved in water. It's something that that's really that can happen a lot and we've seen it ourselves many things, that how many people have accused Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam of many wrongdoings. But it's the way, of course, remember we start off with that verse and we said وَجَادِلُهُمْ بِالَّتِي أَحْسَنُ, but then of course through their akhlaq that would prove that they're completely wrong, or that in that open sense.
So to give an example, for example, within modern day context. So for example, something that a lot of people may relate to. Let's say, for example, in the trade industry. Let's say you've got a builder. You've got two builders. One builder wants to take on the job. So he goes and quotes her, and then the guy tells him, I got this other guy named Blow Joe, or whatever his name is.
Yep.
Joe Blow, sorry. And he's given me a cheaper quote. And then this builder turns around and says, that guy doesn't build properly, that guy's shonky and all these things, and really he doesn't even know him from a bar of soap. Is that an example of it?
That's a very good example of it. Yeah. To give him, like I said, and we said before, we just mentioned it before, that what drives that person to do the Buhtan is, of course, his own worldly gains. See, subhanallah, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam sums it up beautiful. When he says, لا يجتمع العقل والهوى, that you can't have the aql and his ego joined together. Why? Because the aql, if that person, what you said now, if aqli, and he doesn't know that person, he doesn't even know that maybe that person is financially less off than he is, and all that stuff, yet he's making accusations about him. The aql would know that this is wrong. This is what you're doing is wrong. This is what the human aspect, the Islamic aspect, the Ahlul Bayt aspect completely would say that this person, what you're doing is demeaning. It's false. You don't even know the person. Why? Because your hawa, your ego and your passion, you want that job. You would do anything to get that job. So you make any false allegations, like they did with Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. For 80 years, we know for 80 years, you know, the cursing on the mumbar, to the point, what he said, to the point that an accusation can get to the point where when he was hit by the sword in the Masjid Kufa, that people would say, did he pray? He got to the point that, you know what I'm saying, that so he could that person could not only just make him lose that job, he could set off something like a domino effect that could ruin that person's business.
Yep. Ahsan Sayyid, Ahsan.
Yeah.
So Sayyid, moving on to something else that the tongue does, which is something that a lot of people would have heard about, other than the previous example. What is Gheebah? Can you give us an example? And is there such thing as good Gheebah?
Yeah. Okay, before I get to this question, subhanAllah, because this topic here, if you really wanted to go into details, needs a whole episode by itself. Gheebah sometimes is something that, believe it or not, many of us do it. Sometimes we don't even realize that we've done it. But to understand this, to understand Gheebah, we have to understand ourselves first, because I have to say this story firsthand, because that way I can quickly get into what Gheebah is. The faults within ourselves, sometimes the faults within ourselves are what actually drives us in order to see not the beauty of people, but to see the vice of people, because those vices are within our own self. For instance, I'll give you an example. It was said that once in India, there's a beautiful place where you go to, and before you enter this place, there's a beautiful statue. And there's a nice looking statue, and below the nice looking statue, there's another ugly looking statue with horns. And the nice looking statue has got a beauty mark on its right cheek, and then you got the ugly looking statue pointing up to the beauty mark and saying, look at that ugly point. So basically what the town was asked, why you do this, he said, because human beings, no matter what the beauty of a person is and all that stuff, they will always point out the fault, and that person with the two horns won't even see the fault that he's got. Like, he's got many faults himself. And the Gheebah part of it, the backbiting, and that's why it's in the Quran, basically, I encourage the brothers and sisters to look and to study Surah Al-Hujurat, because my God, if you want to know anything about what we've been talking about today now, so about the lying and other aspects of the tongue, look at Surah Al-Hujurat. When the God himself says, أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَنْ يَكُلْ لَحْمَ أَخِي مَيْتًا فَكَرْهْتُمُوهُ, that if would you like to eat the flesh of your dead brother. And this is the point I want to get to now. Why does he say dead? Dead, because usually when you do istighabah with someone, istighabah, what the Prophet ﷺ says, istighabah is basically when you relish, or when you expose or say something about a person that demeans him, or that makes person pretty much expose something of the person that brings down his status, or hurts his feelings. It could just hurt his feelings. If it hurts his feelings, that's Gheebah.
Yeah.
You know? Imam Ja'far Sadiq goes on that if you expose a secret of that person, and that person doesn't want that is between you and him, you know that he might have a fault, for instance, you expose that's Gheebah. So, and the reason why they say, from the hadith, they say dead, because usually the dead can't
do anything about it.
And they can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
And usually, it's like they're doing the act, and this person isn't present, like as if he is dead. And but the factor is, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use the fact that it's like eating the dead flesh of your brother? Because really, in reality, we don't absorb that. You pick someone that you honestly love and you care for and love for, and he's died, and then all of a sudden you're told now to eat the flesh of that dead person. You know, how does it logically, if you actually sat down and thought about it from what, you would actually become physically sick. Physically sick. So Gheebah is that point where we just mentioned now that anything, and it doesn't have to be just something of the physical part of him, like the inner part of him. Like I'm saying, God forbid, like do you know that so and so lies a lot. Like I'm saying, like, you know, but he hasn't exposed that what he does, but he's saying that that this person lies so and so. That's a top, of course, a top of Gheebah, but Gheebah could also be in terms of making fun of someone's physicality, the physical aspect of him. Basically, to cut everything down, everything that brings like shame, that brings like embarrassment, that brings like demises, that brings the honor of, that brings you down. That's Gheebah. That's how it is. You know, we have a narration that once that the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that to show you that it doesn't just confine to that of wording, which I missed out. Sorry, that word Gheebah could also mean writing something about someone badly. We have a narration that once that a khadim, a servant of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, was working in the house, and she left, and she must have been short or something in her size. So one of the Prophet's wives made fun of her. So when she made fun of her, as she left, the Prophet says, "Takhallili," to the wife, meaning floss and floss. She tells the Holy Prophet, "I haven't eaten." He goes, "Takhallili, just do it." And she went apparently, and she flossed, and a piece of meat came out from her teeth. She says, "That's the meat of that servant you just backbited." You know, so backbiting is something that the narrations say is like the disease of leprosy. The Holy Prophet ﷺ says, in fact, it's like the disease of leprosy. What it does, Hajj Ali, what it does, the fact of backbiting or Gheebah, is that like leprosy eats from the individual from the inside out and exposes his bones, backbiting does the same thing to the individual. It eats away his a'mal, he eats away his faith. And God forbid that a person falls into this habit. Sorry you've taken a bit long on this thing, but this is very important to understand that our whole life is based on habits. And when I bring this up to show you now how a person thinks that knows the effects of Gheebah and a person who doesn't know the effects of Gheebah. Every habit that you do, Hajj Ali, is made up of 3 R's, what we call 3 R's. The first one is the reminder, the second one is the routine, and the third one is what we call the reward. For every action that you do, for instance, when you see a green light, what's that remind you of? Go.
Yeah.
So the routine of it, so you saw the green light, the routine of it is to go, the reward of it is to get you to the destination quicker.
Yep.
With Gheebah, if I'm now, I'm in an environment now, and someone starts talking about someone, and I know it's Gheebah, like if that person isn't present and all that stuff, so there's a reminder that someone has brought up Gheebah now. Now the routine part of it is what? I have 2 ways to do it. I can stop it.
Or get up and leave.
The reward of it, what's the reward? One narration from the reward. Just one narration from the reward to show you what person. If a person who stops Gheebah or is can do something to stop the Gheebah, it is better than doing 10,000 rak'ats of prayer or something like that. Just from stopping the Gheebah. Or what we just talked about before, someone reminds you of the Gheebah. The routine is to listen to the Gheebah and participate in the Gheebah. And you know what your reward is? What we just talked about now, eating the flesh. For everything that you do, if you use the 3 R's, the reminder, the routine, and the reward, you will see the effect of every deed that you do, whether it be good or whether it be bad.
Ahsan, Sayyid. Ahsan. Sayyid, next question. What is Namemah? Can you give us an example?
That's Namemah. Namemah is basically gossiping. Gossiping. So the gossiping is basically something that that a person says or a person initiates about someone, and then it just goes on and on. Why? Because at the end of the day, the gossiping is pretty much similar to that of the vices we just talked about now. It's just basically another form of bringing down the honor and the status of that individual. There is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'm sorry to say this, but when it comes to gossiping, psychologically and in terms of even modern day studies and all that have proven that when it comes to gossiping, women outplay men. Because on average, they say on average, this is not nothing with like to say that we're moving towards or being sexist or anything like that. We're saying, but it's just a normal, natural thing between the male and female, that they've done studies that you can compare this. A lady would speak like 20,000 words a day compared to a man that speaks 7,000 words a day. Because they find that men only would speak because they want something done, while the women will speak, and honestly, the women will speak in terms to get through the emotional side of a conversation, and that's an emotional side usually leads to other doors. But gossiping is another thing as well, that it's in fact some of the narrations narrated to Gheebah, because basically gossiping is when you're talking about someone who's not even there to defend himself. You defend yourself, and that's why the Quran, when you look at the verse in which, if I can remember it, when it talks about in Surah Al-Hajarat, I think it's verse 12, and it says, "Ya alladhina amanu ijtanibu kathiran min adh-dhunn, inna ba'da adh-dhunn itham, wa la tajassasu." You know that do not do the suspicion, do not spy. And then the very next verse it talks about Gheebah, but it's all one package. It's all one package of vice about things. And what does gossiping do? Honestly, what does gossiping do? I'll give you one narration what gossiping does. If you know there's a namam or namemah in your community, there's good ways to approach. Of course, the Islamic way is to approach the person in a good way, and to minimize and to stop this person from spreading or gossiping. To the effect that if you don't think it affects you, 100% it affects you. I'll tell you why. Because we have one narration that Musa alayhi salam, there was a drought once in the area. It hadn't been rained for ages. So people asked Musa, "Oh Musa, go and pray for us," to pray. As Musa gathers the people to pray for the rain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to Musa, He goes, "Oh Musa, I'm not going to, you can pray to me night and day." He goes, "I will not send down the rains until the Namam exposes himself." So Musa turns around and he tells the people, he goes, "With all due respect, God's ordained me that this Namam better come and show himself up." You can imagine how embarrassing. At the end of the day, no one, whether these people likes gossiping or that, no one likes a gossiper. They're just a vice. They're just this parasite that send rumors and for their own causes and to have their own laugh. Anyway, to cut the story short, this Namam, because he knows he's guilty, he actually goes, the hadith says he goes outside and he actually repents to see, "Oh God, please, I promise I won't do it anymore. If I do that, they're going to expose me," and all that stuff. So Musa, as he's there, he's about to pray again, it starts raining. So Musa asks God, goes, "Ya Allah, I haven't the Namam hasn't come forth yet." He says, "Oh Musa, it doesn't matter. That Namam, I've dealt with him." And then Musa goes to him, "Show me who he is." He goes, "Oh Musa, I've been covering up his faults for so many years. Now that he's repented, you want me to show you who he is? Let's leave it between me and his Lord." But this is the mercy of rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Namemah, as we said, is the effects of it is everlasting.
So is the westernized version of it like Chinese whispers?
It can be, because you play Chinese whispers as well at school, that sometimes that something could start off as something very small, and then, subhanallah, I've seen it myself. Like, I've seen it and been part of it, where something very small go on to another person. That person adds his 2 cents on, and that, then all of a sudden you've got, instead of having a novel, you've got like what's it called, a sitcom series now. Honestly, you go, wow, this person, this person's done so much in that short period of time. It's unbelievable how we did that. It's like the Chinese version of Chinese whispers, and it has that everlasting effect. And as we said, we kind of mentioned as well that because of technology, see, before, when I had to do Gheebah, where do I have to go? Do you understand?
Yeah.
When I had to do Gheebah, even Namemah, I had to gossip to someone. I'm not going to gossip to the wall. So back in the old days, to do Namemah and Gheebah, and you needed people. But now the sin can be done in the closed apartment or closed in your own bedroom with your phone. You could spread rumors. You could talk about people through the social media. That's still considered these sins that we've been talking about now. Namemah, Gheebah, that's all part of it. But now that it's because of technology, it becomes even worse. How much it can travel, and like the gossiping can travel from here to Lebanon, to Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan within a few moments.
That's right.
Ahsan,
Sayyid, Ahsan. Sayyid, next question. What is one's duty in the cases of the previously mentioned if they were present when such things take place? So I know, again, you did touch up on it lightly, but just if you can rephrase those 2 things, what are the 2 options?
Okay. First of all, when it comes to this type of scenario, when something happens like this, the best thing to do, Hajj Ali, is what the scholars, or what a scholar says, the triple filter test. What the triple filter test says, when a situation arises like that, when there's going to be Gheebah, when there's going to be Namemah, and all that stuff, they say that once a person came to the scholar, this is exactly what will answer your question now. The person comes to the scholar and he says, do you know that your friend so-and-so is, and he goes, hold on a sec, stop there. He goes to him, stop. He goes, you can tell me, I'll let you tell me about my friend when you pass the triple filter test. He goes, triple filter test? What do you mean triple filter test? He goes, it's just 3 things I want to know before I'll let you even continue. He goes, okay, the first thing you're about to tell me about my friend, is it true? He says, no, I heard it from someone else, for instance. Like, yeah. He goes, so you're not certain about this? He goes, no. He goes, don't tell me that. I heard it from someone else. So you didn't even hear it. He goes, okay, maybe I'll let you pass the other 2 tests. He goes, the second thing you're about to tell me about my friend, is it good? It means, is it good in terms of good towards him and good towards me? He goes, no, bilhaks, it's something bad, because that's what usually it is. He goes, first of all, so far you're going to tell me something that you don't know whether it's true. Second of all, you're going to tell me something that's bad instead of good. He goes, maybe, just maybe you got one more filter to pass and I'll let it go through. He said, is the last bit of information going to give me useful? He goes, no, bilhaks, it's not. He goes, what do you mean? Then why are you telling me for? So you're going to tell me something that's not that's a lie. That's most likely a lie. That hasn't got any good and it's useless. Then why are you telling me for? The fact that you're telling me this now is because you, just like the person that told you, are part of this vice and this domino effect that you want to spread these rumors and bring down the status of this individual. When you're in an environment like this, you have 2 choices: either to ask the person, like I just did then, and the hadith says that the listener of Gheebah is exactly the same as the person that does Gheebah. If any time, whether you're listening to Gheebah, whether you're listening to gossip and all that stuff, if you're there present, it's as if you have participated in that crime, for instance. And that's why we said that even the hadith says, if you're radhi, if you lived in the east and you were radhi with something in the west, yeah, and you knew about and all that, and you're content with it, it's as if like you were there. You did that that sin, whatever it is. So for us, is to be strong. You know, when you when the Imam talks about the characteristics of a mu'min, the last one is what considers or what concerns the question that you talked about today. When he says that a mu'min, alamat al-mu'min khamsa, he says al-wara'a fil khilwa, that he's always when he's alone, he's God wearing. Was sadaqa fil qilla. When he's got no money, he still gives sadaqah. It's very hard. He goes, was sabr fil andal masiba, and to be patient when calamities are. And he says, wal hilm andal ghadab, to be like forbearance on when he's angry. And the last one, he goes, was sidq andal khawf, to say the truth. Even like some people say, like, I don't want to say this, man. I'm embarrassed, like, you know. Like about my reputation. You worry about your reputation? What about that poor guy that's being backbited and being gossiped about? You know, you have a chance to defend him. And in fact, the hadith says in the Greater Sins book, says that if a person who defends a mu'min from these types of vices, God will defend him on the day where you most need it, on the day of judgment. Yeah, and if you don't, God says to him, I want nothing to do with you. Just like you didn't have the respect for that mu'min, I have nothing to do with you.
Ahsan, Sayyid, ahsan. So Sayyid, this one's very relevant. I'm sure we can all relate to it. So we've been talking about accusations and assumptions and Gheebah and Namemah and Buhtan and whatnot. So a question comes about. If I've accused someone of something or spoken ill about someone, do I need to ask forgiveness from that person? First part. Second part, does the person need to know what I said?
This is a very, very hard question in terms of, because if you look at the ruling of Gheebah, see, you know, when you go along the road to your judgment, the first checkpoint that you get to is what they call huquq al-insan. When you get there and they'll ask, like, this is the bit where God says, sorry, if you've taken any rights or if you're talking about anyone, you're going to ask for that person over there. The scholars differ on this. Some scholars say you have to, like if I've spoken ill about someone and all that, at least you have to say I've spoken ill about him say there was a group of people, he wasn't there. To that group of people, I have to go to each one of that group of people and tell them what I said about this person was wrong. Please forgive me. Now, they have said that if you're worried that by approaching that person, that by me telling him that it might, like say you had a good relationship with him, you're worried that this person, by you telling him that I spoke badly about you, it might deter your relationship or might cause trouble, then according to someone like Sayyid Sistani, he says then do istighfar for him. Every time you remember him, do istighfar for him. But some other scholars have said that approach him, tell him, look, don't have to go into details, that's it, you don't have to go into, just go to him and say, look, please forgive me. I let my shahwa, I let my quwwal shahwi go over me, and I spoke, about you, and I know the consequences of speaking, especially of a mu'min, and I ask for your forgiveness. So why? Because on the day of judgment, Hajj Ali, this is scary, honestly. To what you just talked about, this is a very, very good question. Imagine on the day of judgment all the good deeds that you've done, all the good deeds. You've come up and you've known that I've been to Hajj so many times, I've been to Ziyarah so many times, and then you open up your book and there's no Ziyarah and there's no Hajj. What happened here? It's like, hey, did you miss something? And I know someone format my hard drive, and the guy goes, no, I'm sure I did this. He goes, no, you didn't. Oh, by the way, and then Yeah, if you look closely enough, it's, you know, that person down the border used to talk about.
They've taken it.
They've taken all of that. The other guy, the guy you talk about, he'll know. They go, my God, but I can't remember. I did 20 hajjs or something. You know, where did this come from? So the hadith says that all the a'mal that you do, and all that, when you do istighaba or istighab someone and do the gheebah of someone, basically you're giving them the rewards. You're giving them the rewards of every action. You're just burning everything that you did. It's basically, I've accumulated. Imagine that. You built this beautiful home now in paradise, and then they give you a bomb. You go, okay, put it in there. Blow it. What do you mean? I'm not going to. That's my no. It's not going to you anymore. You don't deserve that. That's basically what it is. Hajj is it's to get the, hopefully, if the person's a mu'min, and knows that, you know, at the end of the day we're not infallible.
Yep.
We do. We're just out of our quwwa al-ghadabiyya, we say things sometimes, I don't know, at that moment of time, and that's why Imam Ali alayhi salam sums it up beautiful. He says lisan al-aqil wara qalbuhu. That the tongue of a wise man is behind his heart. He thinks several times. He goes, وَقَلْبَ الْأَحْمَقِ وَرَا لِسَانُهُ. The ahmaq, the fool, just blurts things out. He doesn't think, because the spiritual heart, when it's connected to know that this tongue of yours, like Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, when he talks about, you know, the treatise of the rights, he talks about the tongue. The tongue has its own rights, that it should only speak and remember the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It should stay away from anything that displeases God. This has a hurmah, it has a nobility. Right? So this is very important about the mu'min.
Ahsan Sayyid, ahsan.
Assalamu alaikum.
So Sayyid, we're running a little bit short on time. There's three questions left, so inshallah if we can get through them quickly. Taqqiyah. What is Taqqiyah? Can you give us an example? This is something that other schools of thought tend to defame the Shia for a lot.
Yeah.
So if you can give us a quick example of it and what it is.
Well, Taqqiyah sometimes is referred to as, in the English, dissimulation. Basically, the Quran, do we believe the words of God? Is there any mistakes in the Quran?
No.
Do we at least look at the Quran as an inspiration and examples? Of course we do. So there's 4 verses in the Quran, both the Sunni and the Shia both agree that it has to do with Taqqiyah. Taqqiyah comes from the Arabic word waqaya, pretty much to protect. But what's the importance about Taqqiyah is when your life, when your family, when your possessions are all at risk because of the result of your faith, So this is the reason what Taqqiyah is used for. So anytime a person's life is at threat, lies at threat due to his beliefs, then Taqqiyah is in place. And like you said, you just mentioned, like Fakhr al-Razi. Fakhr al-Razi is not one of from our schools of thoughts. You know, from the others. Ibn Abbas, who's known as Hibr al-Ummah. If you look at their narrations on verse 25 or 29 of Surah one of the verses that we will mention of Taqqiyah, he says Fakhr al-Razi says that when a person when he's in an environment where there's like the enemies or disbelief, and he has to conceal his faith and pretend that he follows these people, then this is okay. You're saying this, so it's not just a so-called Shia thought. This is something that history has proven to us. Ammar bin Yasir was, we know Ammar bin Yasir, when his father Ammar and his mother Sumayya and himself were captured by the polytheists and they were tortured. His father and mother didn't want to repute their religion. They stayed firm and they died. They were the first martyrs in his religion. Ammar, did. And that's why we said that sometimes it doesn't mean if you're if you're not brave, you can't be a mu'min, and all that stuff. That's it. So he probably, what he saw, he couldn't handle the torture of what they did. So he said what he had to do to get out and to save him. Now, when the people started talking about Ammar, the Prophet grabbed everyone in front of the people to say this. See, the everything that the Prophet does is a hujjah to the day of judgment. Whatever the Prophet has given you is a hujjah to the day of judgment. He made everyone present. Ammar is crying because he hears the rumors that, Ammar went back to his old ways and all that stuff. The Prophet tells him, Ammar, his whole body from head to toe, he's got more faith than all of you here. Yeah? And he physically wipes the tears of Ammar's face and tells him, like, what you did is right. Because, of course, Ammar is someone that the hadith says later on, when one of the caliphs was making fun of him while they're building the mosque, and Ammar was saying the poetry, and then the Prophet says, Ammar is the meat between my two eyes. Yeah. So and we got plenty of other verses in the Quran that talk about Taqqiyah. The mu'min of Ali Fir'aun. Everyone knows that. When he goes, "Taqtuluna nas min qal Rabbi Allah." He's the one that defended Musa. He told Musa that these people are gonna kill you. Go. Ahl al-Kahf as well. Another one that can seal that. We know in history, like someone like the great Abu Talib alayhi salam. How he protected the Prophet and all that stuff. He used a great example of Taqqiyah. Because at the end of the day, who did the Prophet have to protect him? Then Abu Talib. So when your life is in danger, Hajj Ali, and no one, and like anyone that says this nonsense that we, the Shia, just do this, are complete, utter ignorant people, and they don't even study their own books. Go and look at Sahyuti, Allah told you, and look at their own books. I can get you all the references that they use this type of form. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yep.
And especially the Shia, who's been prosecuted more in history, up to now, up to the day of judgment, than us, and they say that we don't have to use this type of form.
Ahsan Sayyid, Ahsan. Sayyid, second last question, inshallah. What is Tawriyah? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, Tawriyah is basically the concealment of the truth without uttering a lie. That's what the Tawriyah is. So basically, it's saying something which has two different types of meanings. It sounds a bit confusing, but it's something that something has to be done. In other words, it can be used as a form of protection for something. For instance, someone that's coming to your house that is going to do harm to someone in the house, and they come and they say, "Is so and so here?" And you say, "No, he's not here." But when you say when he's not here, meaning he's not here standing next to
in the same spot
as you, or someone comes and says, "Is your husband home? He was here this morning." What do you mean? And if he repeats it again, he was here this morning. Like he was here in the morning, like where I'm standing here now. Like for instance, basically it's a system where you don't want to expose that person, and you give another interpretation, another meaning to the other person. So one of them is the truthfulness, while the other one that can be taken as a different interpretation. That's what Tawriyah is basically. Yeah.
Ahsan Sayyid. And Sayyid, the last question, very interesting question, is is cursing something that is bad to persistently have on one's tongue, or is there reward in certain forms of cursing?
Yeah. To answer this question first, if you look at sometimes when people try to do interpret the meaning of swearing and cursing, la'an is something that's very, very common in the Holy Quran. Yeah? For basically, la'an is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take His mercy away from those people. Why would you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take the mercy away from these people? Because these people are usually the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They've done done something which has hurt the divine, like the prophets or the imams or anyone that does oppression to a mu'min, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take that mercy away from him. While sab, yes, cursing, which is probably a bit related to the Imam Ali alayhi salam in the Battle of Safin, you know, the famous incident where, you know, when they finally got the water back from the cursed army of Muawiyah, and they had the upper hand. So the followers of Imam Ali started swearing, not cursing, swearing, and then he tells him, please don't, that I don't want you to be of the swearing. Swearing, you know, using these vice words on your tongue. That swearing, of course, definitely is not a habit of a mu'min and people of the Ahlul Bayt. Cursing, well, unless I'm mistaken, because the Quran says what we started today when one of the first questions was about lying. Well, if I can remember, for instance, like one example, the incident of Mubahala. Huh? Honestly, yeah. When you went to expose someone, expose the people, and the Prophet bring himself, Al-Hassan al-Hussein alayhi salam, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, you know, in the famous thing, تعالوا ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونسائنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم, until the end. What did he say? لعنة الله على الكاذبين. Wow. How many times did God say لعنة الله على المشركين, لعنة الله على الظالمين? You know, this line, basically God is asking God to take away this mercy that He showers upon Bani Adam on a daily basis. And to say that this is not a sunnah of the prophets. The verse in, if I can remember, when God says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, لعن الذين كفروا من بني إسرائيل على لسان داود وعيسى بن مريم. So, of course, you know, the Israelites, so here you got two prophets that are cursing the people because they would not listen to him. One of them is Ulul Azam, Isa ibn Maryam. So by saying that that cursing is in itself is wrong, is going against the sunnah of the prophets. So we talked about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi and Ahlul Bayt, and we talked about other prophets, about how they cursed the people. So, but do we curse? Do we curse in terms of the way we curse? This is where the question now comes into place, because at the end of the day, the whole essence of what we're speaking about today is akhlaq. And the way I sometimes want to show someone why we curse someone, I would have to actually show the principle of why we do it in a more intellectual way. I know there's shows out there that just curse left, right and centre, even though that we know that these are the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. But imagine honestly, Hajj Ali, someone that's grown all his life and he sees the azama of that person, of that, like a so-called Muslim character, and all of a sudden I come and I start cursing him, you know, but even though he probably doesn't even understand what lahan is, because that's what most people think. When we lahan someone, they think that it's cursing. Because why they get this? Because if you look at, this is how dumb it is. If you look at the English definition of cursing, a lahan, they put them under, like in the Cambridge, whatever it is, the interpretation definition. It means the same thing. It doesn't mean the same thing. There's a big difference. But someone who's lived all their life knowing the azam of that person, and then you start coming cursing him like that,
you've lost him.
You've lost him. But if you come and show him, things like now, we're coming to the days of the Fatimiyya alayhi salam, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and the dhulm of Fatima al-Zahra. If I slowly get this person aside, I say to him, look, not from my books, this is Sahih Bukhari, this is Sahih Muslim, 1, 2 and 3. Let's sit down. What would you say about someone that says, for instance, fil bayti Fatima, and he says, we're in the house lives Fatima, or is in the house is Fatima, and he says, so what? What do you mean, so what? That's the daughter's prophet, the daughter of the prophet, you know, Sayyid al-Nisa al-Alamin wal-Awwalin wal-Akhirin. What do you mean, so what? What kind of respect is that? When you sow the character of someone, that person automatically will curse. Because he knows it's a natural thing. In fact, The Holy Prophet, and I'll sum it up with one hadith. The Holy Prophet says that if he says that, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, whoever considers a sin, whoever considers lahni as a sin, because of the offense of other people, of that other person, that know that the lahni will be upon that person. Yeah? Because I won't do it because I'm worried that I've hurt his feelings. Don't consider it as a sin. But if you don't want to say it, don't say it. But at the point is, don't make it as if that it's something bad. Yes, why do we say, like in some of the ziyarat, we say we curse these people? Because we do get rewards for it. Ziyarat Ashura, for instance. No? Authentic ziyarah by many scholars. The rewards of it are endless when people do it. And we get rewards for this. And we curse people that deserve to be cursed. It's not like we're cursing people that don't deserve to be cursed. So the cursing itself is to show you that I am like we said, Ana silmun liman salamakum wa harbun liman harabukum. That I'm peace with who God is at peace with, and I'm an enemy who God is with his enemy with.
Ahsan Sayyid, Ahsan. Viewers, that's the show for today. We hope we have been able, inshallah, to clarify for you the many dangers of the tongue and the many different terminologies in which one may think that they're able to commit sins through, whether it's Namemah, Gheebah, Buhtan, and whatnot. And obviously other avenues in which lies can be done, but with precautions such as Tawriyah and whatnot. For those of us, and I'll speak about myself obviously before everyone else, that have spoken about others, obviously, facing the camera, we do ask for forgiveness, obviously on the Sayyid's behalf and my behalf, and also the camera crew of The Guided. We hope that you can forgive us for any shortcomings or any lies that have happened from us to you guys ever in the past. Allah Kareem, and inshallah, we have been able to benefit you with today's lecture. Sayyid, thank you very much for the intense research into the topic of the dangers of the tongue.
Thank you very much, Hajj Ali. Ahsan
Allah ilaik. Ahsan Sayyid. That's us for today. Inshallah, we'll see you next week as per usual, and we'll keep you updated with the topic early during the week. For now, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا فصل على محمد وآله وعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجل وبضر تكشف ونصر تعز وسلطان حق تظهر ورحمة منك تجللنا وعافية منك تلبسنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.